Subscribe to the channel and hear even more exciting stories. My mom sabotaged my happiness for years. How I finally stood up to her. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said my mom was my best friend. Not in that cute, we go for brunch and share makeup kind of way, but in the slightly clingy, I need to know every detail of your life so I can sleep at night kind of way. I'm 29 and still can recite her favorite phrase. I just worry about you, honey. Sounds sweet, right? I used to think so too. Growing up, it was just me and mom in a tiny apartment with floral wallpaper and too many throw pillows. She was always there, parent-teacher conferences, college tours, even the dentist, as if I'd run off with the hygienist. I thought her involvement was love. Sometimes, though, it felt like a spotlight burning on my every move. Any hobby, crush, or goal I had, she needed a full report and a chance to weigh in. If I got excited about something, she'd ask, "Are you sure that's right for you?" Every single time. By high school, I'd learned to edit my stories, trimming anything that might earn a frown or a sigh. Red flags? Honestly, I ignored them. She'd cry if I didn't call her after a date. She'd forget to pass along messages from friends. When I got into my dream college across the country, she guilted me into staying local, saying she couldn't bear to lose me. At the time, I thought it was love mixed with a little too much anxiety. Now, I wonder how much happiness I traded for her peace of mind. Don't get me wrong, there were good times, too. Movie marathons, inside jokes, her chicken soup when I was sick. But sometimes love comes with strings, and I was so tangled up in them, I didn't even know I was being pulled. If only I'd seen it sooner. If only I'd realized that concern, in her hands, was just another word for control. It wasn't one giant revelation. It was 1,000 tiny cuts, things I shrugged off until they finally bled together into something I couldn't ignore. The first real crack came after my breakup with Mark, the one boyfriend my mom ever approved of, or so I thought. We'd dated for almost a year, and it ended with him telling me, "I just can't deal with your mom anymore." I laughed at first, genuinely confused. He sent screenshots. Dozens of texts from her, ranging from passive-aggressive recipe suggestions, "Hope you're feeding my girl right," to flat-out criticism about his job, his family, his plans for us. I had no idea. I called her in shock. She just sighed and said, "I was only protecting you. You always attract the wrong kind of men." I tried to swallow it, to believe she meant well, but it gnawed at me. Suddenly, I started replaying old breakups. There was Lucas, who ghosted after meeting my mom at Thanksgiving. She'd later, accidentally, let it slip he'd confided he wasn't ready for a relationship. Or Sophie, my best friend since childhood, who moved away in high school after a huge falling out I never understood. My mom always said Sophie was jealous and manipulative, but had she ever actually done anything to prove that? Or was it just another story mom spun to keep me close? The final straw was a message from Rachel, a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, I know this is random, but I wanted to apologize for disappearing. Your mom told me you needed space after the breakup, and I just wanted to respect that. I should have asked you." My hands shook as I read it. My own mother was rewriting my life behind my back, editing out anyone she saw as a threat to her control. That night, for the first time, I let myself wonder. What if my mom wasn't just overprotective? What if she was the reason I felt so alone? The truth was ugly, and I wanted to look away. Part of me was furious, ready to call her out and demand answers. The other part, the daughter who still craved her approval, kept whispering, "Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. Maybe you're being dramatic." After all, this was my mom. The person who made me grilled cheese when I was sick, who stayed up all night when I was heartbroken. I scrolled through my phone, rereading Rachel's message, Mark's screenshots, even old texts from Sophie that I'd never really noticed before. Little things like, "I wish we could talk without your mom around," or, "Are you sure that's how you feel?" I started to question my memory. Was I just seeing patterns that weren't there? Was I making my mom into a villain because I couldn't keep a relationship? It took me days to admit what was staring me in the face, but anger eventually won out. Not the fiery, table-flipping rage, just a slow, simmering sense of betrayal. I confronted her in the most cowardly way possible. A text. "Mom, did you tell Rachel I needed space? Did you talk to Mark about our relationship behind my back?" Her response was instant. "You know I only want what's best for you, sweetie." Sometimes friends and boyfriends aren't good enough. I'm sorry you feel hurt, but one day you'll thank me. I sat there, phone in hand, stomach in knots. The guilt was so thick I could barely breathe. Was I ungrateful for even questioning her motives? That night, I called Liv, my one remaining friend who'd always kept a healthy distance from my mom, and spilled everything. She didn't sugarcoat it. That's not normal, and it's not okay. Hearing someone else say it out loud was both a relief and a heartbreak. It made it real, and once I'd acknowledged it, I knew I couldn't go back to pretending. Once the blinders were off, I started seeing evidence everywhere. It was like suddenly realizing you've been living in a house with mirrors instead of windows. Every reflection of my past started to look suspicious. I combed through old texts and emails, and the patterns were undeniable. Messages from friends I never received, invites that somehow got lost, breakups that didn't add up. My mom's fingerprints were everywhere. I reached out to Sophie, nervous after all these years. She responded right away, relief in every line of her message. I never wanted to leave. Your mom made me feel like I was the problem. She told me you didn't want to be friends anymore. That hurt more than I care to admit. It was like I was discovering someone had stolen entire chapters from my life. I dug through old boxes in my closet, looking for anything that might explain why my life had felt so small and curated. I found old birthday cards from exes, notes from friends, reminders of connections that had been quietly snipped away, all under the guise of protection. But it wasn't just the past. Even in the present, my mom was finding new ways to insert herself. She'd text my boss about health concerns if I worked late. She accidentally told a new friend I was too overwhelmed to go out, so they'd stop inviting me. I started to realize my entire world had been meticulously designed to keep me dependent and alone, and every attempt at independence was met with sabotage disguised as love. By the time I finished tallying it all up, I felt physically sick. It was as if my whole sense of self, my choices, my relationships, my happiness, had been filtered through her approval, her control. I knew what I had to do, but the thought of actually confronting her, tearing down the only family I'd ever known, made my heart pound with dread. The truth was out, but now I had to decide. Was I strong enough to act on it? I put it off for days, maybe weeks, under the excuse of gathering more evidence or waiting for the right moment. But the real reason was fear. Fear of shattering what little was left between us. Fear of her turning the entire family against me. But mostly, fear of finally seeing her for who she really was, and knowing she'd never change. The confrontation was less movie drama, more slow-motion train wreck. I invited her over for dinner, just the two of us. She came in, fussing about my messy apartment and bringing your favorite soup like nothing was wrong. We made small talk, but the air felt electric, full of everything unsaid. When I finally started, my hands were shaking. Mom, I know about what you did. With Mark, with Rachel, with Sophie. I know about the messages and the things you told people behind my back. She went still, soup spoon frozen halfway to her mouth. I kept talking, voice cracking but determined. You've been sabotaging my relationships for years. What? She didn't deny it. Not at first. She started to cry. Of course. Tears weaponized to twist the knife of guilt. I just wanted to keep you safe. The world is so cruel, and I couldn't bear to see you get hurt. Then she shifted gears. You're too naive, too trusting. I know what's best for you. I almost caved. The urge to comfort her, to make this all go away, was overwhelming. But I held my ground. You don't get to decide what makes me happy. Not anymore. She switched tactics. Gaslighting, blaming my overactive imagination, even saying I was too emotional and ungrateful. I told her I needed space. Real, actual space. She stormed out, calling me selfish. I watched her leave, feeling gutted and strangely lighter at the same time. The spell had broken. There was no going back. The fallout was just beginning. But for once, the next chapter would be mine to write. After she left, the silence in my apartment was deafening. I kept expecting my phone to blow up with angry texts or guilt trips, but instead, there was just nothing. No good morning check-ins. No questions about what I was eating or who I was with. I thought I'd feel free. Instead, I felt raw and exposed, like my skin had been stripped away. The loneliness hit harder than I'd expected. Even with all the pain, my mom had been a constant in my life, a predictable storm. Now, I was left with a hurricane's aftermath and no idea how to rebuild. I spent hours replaying the confrontation, doubting myself. Was I cruel? Ungrateful? Had I made it all up? The guilt and relief twisted together until I couldn't tell which was stronger. Some family members started to pick sides. My aunt called, confused and a little judgmental. She's your mother. She only wants what's best. Others, like my cousin Jess, quietly admitted they'd always thought Mom was a little much. My friends, the real ones who'd seen it all unfold, were supportive but careful, not wanting to make me choose sides, but also reminding me that setting boundaries didn't make me a bad daughter. The weirdest part was how my relationships changed. Some friendships grew closer. I wasn't hiding, editing, or apologizing for someone else's behavior anymore. Others faded away, casualties of years of isolation I couldn't undo overnight. Dating felt impossible. Every time I met someone new, I wondered if Mom would find a way to reach them, to warn them off. The paranoia wasn't gone, but it was slowly giving way to something else, a tiny, stubborn seed of hope that maybe, with time, I could build a life that was finally my own. But the hardest part was grieving the mom I thought I had. It turns out, losing an illusion hurts almost as much as losing a person. With the worst of the fallout settling, I realized I was standing at a fork in the road. Keep living in fear of my mom's shadow, or actually start living for myself. I chose the second. Though, if I'm honest, it felt less like a triumphant movie montage and more like dragging myself through quicksand with a single stubborn thought. This can't be my whole life. First, I started therapy. My therapist was the first person, besides Liv, who said, "None of this is your fault," and I nearly burst into tears from sheer relief. She helped me untangle the guilt from my need for independence, and, slowly, I learned to trust my own decisions. I reached out to old friends. Some doors were closed for good, but others cracked open. Sophie and I met for coffee, both of us a little awkward, both grieving the years lost. We didn't pick up where we left off, but we did start something new, built on honesty instead of secrets. Rachel messaged back, and for the first time, we actually talked about what happened instead of tiptoeing around it. I even started dating again, this time on my terms. I kept boundaries. I told people upfront about my family situation, not as a warning, but as a truth. It felt strange, but freeing. The more I claimed my space, the less power my mom's absence had over me. The small victories added up. Planning a trip without her input, saying no without feeling like I'd committed a crime, buying a plant, and not telling her what kind. For the first time in my life, my happiness felt like it belonged to me. Of course, there were setbacks. Nights when I'd hear her voice in my head, warning me, doubting me, guilting me. But every day I didn't give in was another day I proved to myself that I could live, and even thrive, without her steering the wheel. The real turning point wasn't loud or dramatic. It happened one afternoon when Mom called, out of the blue, after weeks of silence. Her voice was syrupy sweet, pretending nothing had changed. She wanted to know if I'd join her for lunch, maybe run some errands together, just like old times. For a moment, I almost said yes, feeling that old reflex to keep the peace. But something in me had shifted. I took a deep breath and told her, "I need more time, Mom. I'm building my own life now, and I need space to figure out who I am, without you deciding for me." There was a long, cold pause on the line. Then she switched tactics, guilt-tripping and even crying a little, telling me how much she missed me and how she was only trying to be a good mother. For the first time, I didn't fold. I calmly repeated myself and ended the call. It felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I realized I didn't have to justify or explain myself anymore. My life, my boundaries. I could say no and the world wouldn't end. That phone call was my first real step into adulthood, one I should have taken years ago. Afterward, I cried, not out of guilt, but out of relief. I called Liv and told her what happened, and she was proud of me. Even Jess texted, "You're stronger than you think." That week, I started a new hobby, pottery. For the record, Mom always said it was too messy, joined a book club, and bought tickets for a weekend trip out of town. Each tiny act of independence felt like a rebellion against years of control. Looking back, the freedom was never about running away from my mom. It was about running toward myself. And every step I took was another crack in the wall she'd built around my happiness. With each passing week, the space between me and my mom grew wider and safer. For the first time in my life, I could breathe. I kept going to therapy, kept checking in with Liv and Jess, kept making choices that were mine alone. Some days, I felt like I was relearning how to live, how to want things, try new experiences, and risk getting it wrong, all without waiting for her approval or dreading her disapproval. Mom kept reaching out in small, manipulative ways, passive-aggressive texts, "Miss you, but I guess you're too busy for your old mother." Gifts left at my door, guilt-laden voicemails. But I stood my ground, sometimes answering with simple, polite boundaries, sometimes not answering at all. I learned that peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's the presence of self-respect. My circle of friends grew. People who liked the real me, not just the daughter I played for my mom's sake. Sophie became a regular in my life again. We talked about the past, mourned the years we lost, and found laughter in new memories. I even started dating someone who wasn't afraid of complicated family dynamics. For the first time, I could share my story without shame, just honesty. I wish I could say my relationship with my mom magically healed. The truth is, it's still complicated. She's still my mother. I still love her, but I no longer let that love erase everything else about me. We talk occasionally, carefully, like people navigating a minefield. Sometimes I grieve what could have been, but mostly I'm proud of the person I'm becoming. I look in the mirror now and see someone who finally belongs to herself. Someone who understands that happiness doesn't have to come at the price of someone else's comfort. And I don't regret a thing. Looking back, I wish someone had told me sooner that you're allowed to question the people who raised you. That love doesn't excuse control, and that setting boundaries with family isn't betrayal, it's survival. For so long, I thought I was ungrateful, dramatic, or even crazy for feeling suffocated. But now, I know, love should feel like freedom, not a cage. I still have moments of doubt, holidays, birthdays, those random Tuesdays when I wonder if I should just give in and play the good daughter again. But then I remember the years I lost to loneliness, guilt, and self-doubt. I remember the friends I almost let go, the dreams I nearly abandoned. I remember how it felt to finally choose myself, even when it hurt. If you're reading this and see yourself in my story, please know you're not alone. It's okay to want more, to outgrow the roles you were cast in as a child. It's okay to seek help, to rebuild, to let people go if you must. None of that makes you a bad person or a bad daughter. It just makes you human. Start small. Say no. Ask questions. Listen to your gut. If you need to, get help. Therapy saved me in ways I can't explain. Surround yourself with people who see you, not just the version of you that makes them comfortable. Most importantly, forgive yourself for not seeing it sooner. Healing isn't a straight line, and sometimes you have to break apart before you can build something better. My life isn't perfect, but it's finally mine. And if my story helps even one person take their first step toward freedom, then all the pain was worth it.